It's now a little past 5 o'clock on Friday, January 10th. I'll go ahead and call the regular rescheduled meeting of the Logansport Common Council to order. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Here.
Bob Bishop.
Here.
Joe Buck.
Here.
Gary Fox.
Here.
Charlie Hastings.
Here.
Chuck Liddell.
Present.
Lisa Joy.
Present.
All members are present. There will be no comments from the mayor tonight. Are there any petitions or comments of citizens? I did. Pardon me, Jim. I'm sorry. Hold on. Just please go ahead and have a seat. I forgot to ask for approval of minutes. So,
Your Honor, I ask the minutes be approved as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? All right, we'll call for a vote on approval of minutes.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
Bob Bishop.
Yes.
Joe Buck.
Yes.
Gary Fox.
Yes.
Charlie Hastings.
Yes.
Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
Minutes are approved on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. There are still no comments of the mayor. Now I would invite you to the microphone.
Good evening, members of the Common Council of the City of Logansport. I am a citizen in this community by the name of Jim Brew. I live at 1315 East Market Street, and my comment this evening is focused upon your ordinance called Amendment to the Pyrolyzer Ordinance 2013-47. I'm asking you to consider denying that ordinance for these reasons. It is time, I think reasonably, to pull the plug on pyrolyzer. The ordinance that you've written here, that's before you, I believe, on second reading this evening, asks for an unlimited extension of time for the executive mayor to continue to negotiate, that's the term, with Pyrolyzer LLC as initially authorized with the deadline now passed. The body of the ordinance refers to a couple of reasons. Specifically, it refers to the need to write interconnection agreements with MISO, and then it refers to other necessary development matters. The newspaper report after the first reading showed the mayor referring to the need to interconnect with MISO, and the other reason was difficulties with Pyrolyzer coming up with money. Neither one of those reasons are a good occasion. Let me take a few minutes and explain myself, and I will get right to the point. And it's based upon all of the documents in your files for the last year, similar to the same documents that I have reviewed. So I hope that my logic is apparent, and we don't need to be reminded about $1.5 million and the scope of the undertaking. I simply am talking about economics, money management, political prudence. On this one-year anniversary, since Logansport received Pyrolyzer's proposal, the City Council is dealing with the question of giving Mayor Franklin unlimited time to solve what was quoted in the newspaper as unforeseen issues regarding investors and drafting an agreement with MISO, the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, Inc., to sell the extra electricity the plant is projected to create. Neither reason is acceptable because both of these ingredients were known necessities more than 1 year ago. The city's RFP, request for proposals, required Pyrolyzer to finance the project, period. Pyrolyzer's January 11, 2013 proposal states, quote, all capital for the project will be provided by Pyrolyzer LLC, quote. Pyrolyzer should make good on its promise. As to the second excuse, in November of 2012, the paid consultant Peterson said in his study that LMU, quote, is positively situated for transmission sales to the ISO markets in the region, quote, quote. He stated, Peterson did, in writing, that an interconnection agreement with MISO would be needed. Accordingly, the city's RFP required applicants to, quote, describe the interconnection and transmission requirements to access the grid, quote. But Pyrolyzer's proposal was silent as to any plan to access the grid. However, in March of this year 13, the team was, quote, confident, this is Peterson talking, that its schedule including, quote, identification of how the power plant can expand if demand for power exceeds current forecast and capacity of the power plant, quote, was, quote, achievable. That's March. So we see the consultants knew from the beginning that connecting Pyrolyzer to the wholesale grid, MISO, was essential. Now we are told that one reason for delay is drafting an agreement with MISO. MISO has a procedure for reaching an agreement for selling power on the wholesale grid. It starts with making application to MISO, including paying them for an engineering review of your claims. That's how the system works. Anybody who studies MISO, anybody who studies retail operations in the United States of America under the FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission authority, knows how MISO works. If you've been dealing with MISO for a year, you're supposed to already be working on all these things. You're supposed to be in place. So you have to pay MISO up front after you apply for membership, and they do an engineering study based upon your specific particulars of your application. Your claims are reviewed. Go to the MISO website. The MISO website shows no application membership by the city of Logansport or by any Cass County generator. MISO is considering no incineration project or pyrolyzer type project from what appears. Further, there is no evidence that Pyrolyzer has any experience as a regional transmission originator. In the industry, in the wholesale industry, this is known as an RTO. So, in conclusion, besides the point about Pyrolyzer doesn't have the money that they guaranteed on time, if the city, as to the MISO point, is dealing in good faith with its citizens, it should show the MISO application. Show it to us. You've been working on this for a year. Where's the MISO application? It's not on the website. You're not in what they call the queue. Show us that you have undertaken MISO's engineering study of Pyrolyzer's plan. I think that's a prudent request by a citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other petitions or comments of citizens?
Good evening and Happy New Year. Dave Kitchell, 1423 North Street. I'm here tonight to, I guess, revisit a separate issue not related to Pyrolyzer at all, which is the ordinance or resolution that's coming up tonight on the appointment of an executive director for the Economic Development Commission. I think there are 3 points to consider here as we move forward with the discussion on this, and I hope there is some deliberative discussion. But one is, I think that the reaction from the public since this came out last weekend has been outrage, surprise, I wouldn't say shock, but I would say disappointment. And to a great degree, I understand that experience is a great teacher in matters such as redevelopment commission and TIF bonding, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate the time that not just that Bob has put in, but all the councilmen have put in. But I think to do this, if you're going to do this, what you have to provide the public is the proof in the pudding that it's justifiable because there is a need for this position to happen at all. Are there other cities our size with TIF districts that employ an executive director? I think that's the first thing that has to be presented and proved, and not just maybe one example, but several that are out there. And I think that this is a concern because there's been no evidence that not having an executive director has compromised the process in any way. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen it in State Board of Accounts audits. What I have seen is that we have some money in a State Board of Accounts audit that has not been traced, that supposedly is credited to economic development, and that's understandable and certainly legal and justifiable. But it's not been made clear what the time and the place is and the date of that information release. And the third thing is how the salary is to be determined. Do we look it up on monster.com? Do we check with other cities that have this? Or are we just arbitrarily throwing out a money figure of $30,000 and that's what it will take to do it? I don't think that's the way to run a city. It's not the way to create positions. And I would hope that you would realize that people are very skeptical about the ethics involved with this move, because they are. And finally, after coming to the meeting tonight and reading the proposed resolution, it indicates that Councilman Bishop will in fact be involved in negotiation of his own contract. You know, if you're buying his house, maybe, or if you're buying his business, I can understand that. But you're creating a position. You set the tone here. You set the parameters for it, the length, the time. This person serves at your pleasure. And the real concern here I have is this. This creates what's known in the trade as schizophrenia. You're splitting his personality. At what point is he a city councilman? At what point is he an executive director? At what point is he going to speak up on the council and say, I don't think that I should be paid this amount of money, or I don't think I should be offered this job? And I don't think you can do that. That's the problem with this whole situation. You just can't have it both ways. So I think that Councilman Bishop, whether he's the best qualified person in the world or in this room to do this job, and he may be, that's great. But I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too on this issue. That just can't happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more petitions or comments of citizens? I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I was a little disappointed in your article in the paper. One of the things you espoused was who is going to monitor the money. If you realized how the money was handled, if a bill does come into the Redevelopment Commission, an affidavit is, or a voucher is signed by the Redevelopment Commission, it goes to the clerk's office, they handle the money, he will not have money in his hands. So your accusations are totally false and unmerited.
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
Why is he needed at all if he's not?
If you can, you're welcome to come back to the microphone if you'd like to.
Joe, that's the point here. How do you merit the justification of the position being created at all then? If he's not handling the money, what is he doing for $30,000 a year or more?
Right now, we've established approximately $30,000 a year to be negotiated. That salary would be negotiated between the councilman, the mayor, and myself as president of the redevelopment commission. His job criteria would also be in that contract. His job performance would
That's
be
clear.
monitored.
That's clear.
This is a one-year contract. If it does not work, he doesn't decide whether he continues or not. The redevelopment commission will decide whether he continues or not. So I think we've covered several of your points.
It doesn't cover why you're not advertising this publicly as a position for anybody to apply. If any party, any place, any other state, any other city, that anybody that has any experience in this area at all, he has zero. He has
Okay.
none.
No, you're wrong.
He's never been the executive director of a redevelopment commission before.
He has 18 months of experience. He has carried the torch himself. We've done far more in the last 18 months than was done in the last 10 years.
Alan Schubert carried it for 4 years and you fired him for nothing.
Even when I sat on the board. You're welcome to come up and speak again if you'd like to. We're still under comments of the public, so I'll give you a chance. Okay. It's a decision, Dave. We've had this decision. We've had this discussion before, and if it passes, it passes.
When have you ever had this discussion before at a public meeting
No,
that
you didn't-
you're going
you
to
didn't
hire
let
an
me
executive
finish.
director
You
and
know,
pay him $30,000
last
and it
week-
happened to be a city councilman? When did you ever have that?
Last week.
No.
Yes.
Before last week, when did you ever have this discussion?
That's not the question. You
No, that
rephrased
is the question. You have not had this discussion before this
Is
year,
there-
before this week.
Is there any other discussion? Any other public comments? Thank you. Please come forward.
Good evening. My name's Rocky Buffum. As of 5/25 on Friday, I'm the director for the Logansport Housing Authority. I've come for two reasons. One is director of the Housing Authority. Two is a citizen to thank you for your efforts on Ordinance 2014-2. The Housing Authority was established in 1981. I don't know what the budget was at that point. Now it brings about $1.2 million a year into the community. For those that are less fortunate, a lot of them that work 60 hours a week at a waitress job couldn't make it without it. The state revised the statute asking we go from 5 commissioners to 7. So in a lot of cases this is a formality to give Mayor Franklin the authority to bring us up to date. But the commissioners do good work. I look forward to seeing who's appointed. We've sent some names back and forth already. I just want to thank you for your time on the ordinance, and I'll be here if there's any questions or additional comments on what we do, or if there's ever anything you want to see from the Housing Authority or something you don't know about. I'd be happy to take those questions at any time.
What did you say your name was again?
Rocky Buffum.
Thank you. Thank you, Rocky.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rocky.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're still under petitions or comments of citizens. All right, hearing none, we'll go on to reports from committees, boards, and commissions. Hearing none, under old business, ordinance 2013-46. I'll start with Councilman Bishop, please.
Ordinance 2013-46, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, amending Ordinance 2012-37, approving additional appropriations from the non-reverting Logansport Equipment Capital Fund for the purchase of a fire truck. Your Honor, I call for a vote on Ordinance 2013-46.
Second.
Ordinance 2013-46 has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote on Ordinance 2013-46 on second reading.
Bob Bishop.
Yes.
Joe Buck.
Yes.
Gary Fox.
Yes.
Charlie Hastings.
Yes.
Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
Ordinance 2013-46 passes on second reading on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Ordinance 2013-47, Councilman Hastings, please.
ordinance number 2013-47, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport amending ordinance number 2013-07, adopted on March 4th, 2013. Your Honor, I call for a vote on ordinance number 2013-47.
Second.
The ordinance 2013-47 has been moved and properly seconded. Council, I'm very aware of the hard work that you've put in on this issue, and I beg for your tolerance as we continue the negotiation process. It's been very detailed and very exhausting at times, and I have described our negotiations at this point in time to be substantially complete on a number of occasions. I still feel that we are substantially complete. However, I provided to you just prior to this meeting starting a number of amendments to ordinance 2013-47. You have them in front of you. I would request that we amend ordinance 2013-47 as is described and is provided in the handout.
Make a motion that we accept the amendments to the ordinance.
Are these in the packet?
No, those amendments would not be in the packet.
Then how would the public know what you're talking about?
Well, I'll get you a copy.
That's where we need that printer here.
Yeah, be nice.
Or we have this stuff ready prior to 4:30. That wouldn't be a bad idea.
I think you're going to need more.
No, Chris is available if we need to. She can do that. I have legal counsel John Molitor here if there are any questions from counsel regarding the issues. John, I'd ask, did I get a second? Was there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded to amend. I have John Molitor here who helped author the changes. And if council members have a question for the attorney, he can certainly help you out.
I do have a question. I don't know that it's necessarily directed toward Mr. Molitor, but could you please give me a reason why the council wasn't given this information prior to less than 1 hour before the meeting?
We developed this even this afternoon. We were still working on the changes in there, especially the color coding, so that it's more readily understandable. At this time, I think it's better off if we just have Council Molitor explain the intended differences here and the changes and what they do. You want the microphone?
Members of the council, members of the public, here we have a situation where Pyrolyzer to this point in time has not, the negotiations with Pyrolyzer have not yet achieved the objectives of the city, the LMU board, and starting up the process for the rate stabilization initiative. And therefore it seemed necessary at this point to authorize the city to pursue some other alternative, along at the same time continuing to try and see if things can be worked out with Pyrolyzer according to the response that they made to the RFP. So at this point, the amendment would authorize negotiations to start up with other possible providers that might be able to cooperate with the city in moving forward on the project. Utilizing a different law is in addition to possibility of continuing to work with Pyrolyzer toward a build-operate-transfer agreement. So the idea here is to broaden the possibilities of the city to work not only with Pyrolyzer but also possibly with someone else that might be able to accomplish the purposes that the city started out with over a year ago.
Mr. Mayor, I seek your attention. Please under the Robert's Rules of Procedure that this council is required to Again, my name is Jim Brill. I'm the same guy earlier, your neighbor. Under the bylaws, when matters are brought before the public and there's an occasion for citizen comments, and at that moment, walking up here, the only matter before this board for a citizen to comment upon was the language in Ordinance 2013-47, I limited my remarks as a citizen. I would hope that you yourselves would have some occasion to pause here now that you see additional words. You're not talking about the same amendment. I respectfully request that you give yourselves and citizens a chance to study this significant change in policy and approach to a major undertaking before voting on anything. You got more stuff in here. You got to think about these things. Don't get in a hurry. Please, do not get in a hurry. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second on Ordinance 2013-47. Is there any discussion among council? All right, I call for a vote on Ordinance 2013-47 as amended. I'm sorry, we're first going to vote on the amendment. So the amendment, I'll call for a vote on the amendment as presented.
Jeremy Ashcraft,
No.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Charlie Hastings,
Yes.
Chuck Liddell,
No.
Teresa Popejoy.
No.
The amendment passes on a vote of 4 in favor and 3 opposed. Now, Ordinance 2013-47 as amended in its entirety.
Jeremy Ashcraft,
No.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Charlie Hastings,
Yes.
Chuck Liddell,
No.
Teresa Popejoy.
No.
Ordinance 2013-47 passes as amended on second reading on a vote of 4 in favor and 3 opposed. Ordinance 2013-48. That would be Councilperson Popejoy, please.
Ordinance number 2013-48, an ordinance regulating air quality within the corporate boundaries of the city of Logansport, including any future annexed territory. Mayor Franklin, I call for a vote on ordinance 2013-48.
Second.
Ordinance 2013-48 has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote on ordinance 2013-48 on second reading.
Teresa Popejoy,
Yes.
Chuck Liddell,
Yes.
Charlie Hastings,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
Ordinance 2013-48 passes on second reading on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Ordinance 2013-49, Councilman Buck, please.
Ordinance 2013-49, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, approving a fully executed grant agreement to accept a COPS grant provided by the U.S. Department of Justice. Your Honor, I call for a vote on ordinance 2013-49.
Second.
Ordinance 2013-49 has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilman Bishop.
Yeah, could we have Mike come up? And, there's a question on the school board or the school authorizing their part of this.
I have yet to have a MOU signed by the school officials yet. It's in the process. Been in talks with their attorney, Brad Rosie, and it will go before the Logansport School Board on the 13th, and hopefully I will have it on the 14th. But I do not have that document in hand at this time. I would ask that you table this until I can get that for you, get it signed, sealed, and delivered. But I have not been advised of any issues or anything on the school's part.
Michelle Starkey, she agreed with it. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
I think there's been a little bit of discussion before the meeting started about passing this contingent on receiving the appropriate MOU, and I think I would rather us do that than table it
Right.
and continue to drag this out, as we've been working on this since the first part of December.
Yes.
But I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded.
Something.
The amendment is to, it would be contingent, I'm sorry?
Contingent on school board.
Contingent upon school board approval
Correct.
and entering into a memorandum of understanding.
That includes the money, the
Right.
$30,000.
Yes.
Right.
I'd like to-
That's an important part
I'd
of it.
like to be specific,
Yeah.
that if the corporation doesn't want to pay the $30,000, we're not moving forward.
I have read the document that specifically says the amount in there, yes, ma'am.
I have too. So we have a motion and a second to amend this to require the memorandum of understanding to be officially adopted by the school board as well as signed by the city before this ordinance would become effective. Okay, so we will vote on the amendment.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Charlie Hastings.
Yes.
Gary Fox.
Yes.
Joe Buck.
Yes.
Bob Bishop.
Yes.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
The amendment passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Now, ordinance 2013-49 in its entirety.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
Bob Bishop.
Yes.
Joe Buck.
Yes.
Gary Fox.
Yes.
Charlie Hastings.
Yes.
Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
Ordinance 2013-49 passes on final reading on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Now under new business, Resolution 2014-01. Councilman Ashcraft, please.
Resolution 2014-1, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, amending the boundaries of city wards. Your Honor, I call for vote on Resolution 2014-1.
Second.
Resolution 2014-1 has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion?
Hadn't there been some discussion about just simple verbiage and that most other communities are no longer calling them wards and they're calling them districts? Are we going to cross that bridge at another time and date?
We can. It doesn't address it at this time, but we certainly...
I mean, it's not anything that I think should hold this up. I was just asking because we had talked about it.
We certainly can. Is there any other discussion regarding Resolution 2014-1? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote on the resolution.
Gary Fox.
Yes.
Charlie Hastings.
Yes.
Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
Joe Buck.
Yes.
Bob Bishop.
Yes.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
Resolution 2014-1 passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Resolution 2014-2, Councilman Liddell, please.
Resolution 2014-02, a resolution for the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, approving the creation by the Logansport Redevelopment Commission of the position of Executive Director of the Logansport Redevelopment Your Honor, I call for a vote on Resolution 2014-02.
Second.
Resolution 2014-2 has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? And also at this time, we have Tom Pittman with the law firm of Barnes & Thornburg, who is the expert in this area, and I would invite Tom to come to the front in case there's any questions from council or anybody else.
Is there for questions?
Yeah, we had a second.
Yeah, we had a second.
Okay, it's been Resolution 2014-02.
Wait a minute, I want to make an amendment.
Okay.
I want to amend this resolution to become an ordinance.
Okay, is there a second on that? Okay, we have an amendment that's being offered to change Resolution 2014-02 to an ordinance, which would require 2 readings. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Well, we talked about that in committee and had consensus at the committee that was going to be presented in resolution form, so why flippy-floppy flip-flopped again, I don't know, but...
It is presented in resolution form. There's an offer to amend right now.
Right. But the person who offered amendment said he wanted it in resolution form when we met.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to amend Resolution 2014-02 into an ordinance. Call for the vote on the amendment.
Jeremy Ashcraft?
Yes.
Bob Bishop?
Abstain?
Joe Buck?
Yes.
Gary Fox?
Yes.
Charlie Hastings?
Yes.
Chuck Liddell?
Nope.
Teresa Popejoy?
No.
Resolution 2014-02 is amended. I'm sorry, ordinance. Do we have a new ordinance number yet? Okay. The resolution as was presented is now amended to an ordinance on a vote of 4-2 with one abstention. Now, the ordinance as a whole.
Would be 2014.
This will be ordinance 2014-5.
Is that the correct vote count?
Four in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention?
I think
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
we had 4 in favor.
4 in favor,
Okay,
2 against, 1 abstain.
works.
Okay, the new ordinance number is ordinance number 2014-05. Okay, ordinance 2014-05 on first reading. Call for the vote.
Gary Fox?
Yes.
Charlie Hastings?
Yes.
Chuck Liddell?
No.
Teresa Popejoy?
No.
Jeremy Ashcraft?
No.
Bob Bishop?
Abstain?
And Joe Buck?
Yes.
Okay. We have a 3-3 vote with 1 abstention. Would you like? Okay. Under Indiana statute, in the case of a tie on the city council, the mayor breaks the vote, or breaks the tie, and my vote would be yes to advance this to the next reading. So it passes on a vote of 4-3. Is that the official? Okay, it's 4-3. Passes on a vote of 4-3. With 1 abstention.
4-3-1.
Ordinance 2014-1. Councilman Fox, please.
Ordinance 2014-1, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, setting holiday schedule. I motion for ordinance 2014-1.
Second.
Ordinance 2014-1 has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Call for a vote on ordinance 2014-1.
Bob Bishop?
Yes.
Joe Buck?
Yes.
Gary Fox?
Yes.
Charlie Hastings?
Yes.
Chuck Liddell?
No.
Teresa Popejoy?
Yes.
Jeremy Ashcraft?
Yes.
Ordinance 2014-1 passes on first reading on a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Ordinance 2014-2, that would be Councilman Bishop, please.
Ordinance 2014-02, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, amending Resolution 81-4 by adding 2 members to the Logansport Housing Authority. Your Honor, I call for a vote on Ordinance 2014-02.
Second.
Ordinance 2014-2 has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Call for the vote on Ordinance 2014-2.
Teresa Popejoy?
Yes.
Chuck Liddell?
Yes.
Charlie Hastings?
Yes.
Gary Fox?
Yes.
Joe Buck?
Yes.
Bob Bishop?
Yes.
Jeremy Ashcraft?
Yes.
Ordinance 2014-2 passes on first reading on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Ordinance 2014-3, Councilman Hastings, please.
Ordinance 2014-3, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, amending Ordinance 2013-23 regarding the sealing of windows in vacant or abandoned buildings. Your Honor, call for a vote on Ordinance 2014-3.
Second.
Ordinance 2014-3 has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion?
Your Honor, I'd like to offer an amendment to Ordinance 2014-3. When we discussed this in committee, we talked about sometimes putting up, covering the doors or the buildings with plywood is sometimes the best solution for the safety of the neighborhoods. And in reading this, I don't have any heartache with having them match the match the paint to the exterior paint of the building. But I do have some heartache with 45 days out of 2 consecutive calendar years. That's a total of 6% of the year and of that time frame. And I think that some places, simply covering up an entrance, and I can think of multiple places within our community that, like there's a lower level of a garage door that's, they don't use the garage door, so they covered up with the plywood, they paint it, that's fine. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by having that language. So I would like to just strike, my amendment would be to strike the last sentence of that. Said materials may not remain applied to secure doors and windows for more than a total of 45 days out of any 2 consecutive calendar years, and that we let common sense prevail when it comes to removing those or messing with those.
Certainly appreciate your amendment and your concern with that. And, unfortunately, as the saying goes, common sense isn't all that common. And there are a number of places around town that have had plywood over their windows and doors for years upon years, decades. And I can think of one within eyesight of this building. But what we're trying to do is to motivate people to move off dead center and not think that that's a permanent fix.
I understand that.
With all due respect to your request, I'm not married to 45 days either. But last year when we stepped up the requirements for the housing ordinance, we almost instantly had a number of financial institutions that contacted us and asked for a copy of our ordinance, and then they almost immediately complied to make sure that they were in compliance. And sometimes that's all it takes is a new rule to get it done. Certainly we're not going to go out and be unreasonable. That's not the intent here whatsoever. We're trying to raise the standard and also to provide a little bit more curb appeal. Since this is under discussion, I would ask you to consider 180 days out of every 1 year. That gives them 6 months. They have 6 months to deal with it after that. They can put the plywood up for 6 months after that. We know they should understand that we're trying to raise the bar and that they need to come off dead center on this. It's not a permanent fix. And that's only for discussion. I can't make that amendment.
All right, well, point of order. Right now I have an offered amendment, so we have to either have a second or not, and then we can resume discussion.
Can we still have discussion on his amendments?
Not without a second. It needs to have a second or not.
All right.
To further discuss the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second the amendment.
Okay.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with, and somewhat with Chuck's saying here. My question is after the 45 days, they have the plywood, it's painted, what do they have to do after 45 days? Have taken it down?
Yeah.
And fix it?
Yeah.
Well, that's where I think maybe we have a problem, because I don't think they don't mow their yard, I don't think they're gonna fix the garage door, like you said, at a pretty good expense.
Yeah.
So that's the part and I think you're kind of saying somewhat the same thing. I'm not sure if this is the answer or not.
Take the boarding down from the windows and stuff, and then you've got who knows what in those open buildings with whatever kind of drug trafficking or whatever else activities there might be going on in there. I think we're better off to leave the boarding up just to protect.
And
provide some protection.
Sure. And I understand, counsel. I'm just offering this as a way to motivate property owners, most of them absentee property owners. And I think that the shining star that brings attention to this is Manor Motel. Back in February or March, they put plywood over the windows, and it's on a main thoroughfare. It looks horrible. They're never going to do anything with it unless we motivate them to do it.
So, Your Honor, if we have them after 45 days, we have Manor Motel take that plywood down, then what do we have? Then we have a new hotel open.
Well,
afraid.
hopefully we would have a redevelopment that would,
No windows.
hopefully we would have a redevelopment that would demolish the building and start over. It is absolutely deplorable inside, and
It's a tough problem.
and covered with mold from one end to the other. Nobody's
Yeah.
ever going to occupy that building.
It's a
But it's
tough-
council's decision, and I'm comfortable with anything you want to do. It's offered as an amendment to try to motivate some, especially out-of-towners, to upgrade their property and to provide a little bit more curb appeal. We can't legislate pride, but we can legislate a building standard.
What do we do if they don't fix it? What's our next step if they don't comply to this? They don't take it down after 45 days.
We had a case that went through the courts that go back all the way, I think, to Mayor Hettinger, and that was the old Tipton School. It was finally resolved, but it took a lot of time to finally get the case resolved, and
Still on appeal.
so it's not.
I think it's still boarded up and we can't do anything about it.
We're moving on it. I mean, it takes a long, long time, and that's what I'm saying with these. They do take a long time, but again, we had 12 or so when we raised the standard of our housing ordinance last year that immediately complied. Some of them, after we demolished their building, they came in and paid for the demolition expenses. It was cheaper for them to allow us to do it. And so, again, I'm totally comfortable with this if you want to take it under advisement and bring it back a little bit later, but I just don't want it to go away, and would ask you to consider this at some point in time in the near future so that we don't have to deal with decades and decades of plywood or pink styrofoam being placed over windows as a permanent solution.
I'm thinking this might not, it might not be the solution, but it also, I don't know that it hurts either. I don't know if it's a tough problem. I don't want to make it worse. I want to do whatever we can do to make it better.
Mayor, did you have a counter suggestion? What was your suggestion?
My suggestion was to limit it to 180 days out of every 1 year. So they
have 180 days to fix it.
6 months out of every year. They can board it up for 6 months before we're going to ask them to comply and to try to make the improvements. Certainly we take financial consideration under review when we're looking at these things. People simply don't have the money. It may be a different story when we have a bank that has millions and millions that simply doesn't care about the standard of living in Logansport. Those are usually fairly easy to fix.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second to strike the last sentence under the first therefore, the only therefore. Is there any more discussion on the motion and the second? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote on the motion to amend.
Teresa Popejoy,
No.
Chuck Liddell,
Yes.
Charlie Hastings,
No.
Gary Fox,
No.
Joe Buck,
No.
Bob Bishop,
No.
Jeremy Ashcraft,
No.
The motion to amend fails on a vote of 6 in favor and one opposed.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a amendment to ordinance 2014-03, changing the last line from a total of 180 days out of 1 year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to change the number from 45 days to 180 days, and the number from 2 years, 2 consecutive calendar years, to 1 consecutive calendar year. Is there any discussion on that amendment?
So they have 6 months in a year.
6 months from the time they would board it up. Is there any further discussion? Call for a vote on the second amendment.
Teresa Popejoy,
Yes.
Chuck Liddell,
Yes.
Charlie Hastings,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
Ordinance 2014-3 has been amended on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Now ordinance 2014-3 in its entirety.
Jeremy Ashcraft,
Yes.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Charlie Hastings,
Yes.
Chuck Liddell,
Yes.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
2014-3 passes on first reading on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. 2014-4. Not sure whose turn it is. Let's go with Councilman Hastings.
Ordinance 2014-4, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, for authorization and appropriation to purchase real property. Your ordinance, I call for a vote on 2014-4.
Second.
Okay, Council, I know this was a concern in our committee meeting. If you look under Section 6, it's hard to assign a commitment to the redevelopment commission or with TIF monies until that vote has actually taken place. And I would propose that somebody offer the amendment to strike Section 6, at least temporarily.
I'll offer that amendment since I brought it up.
Second.
We have an amendment to Section 6 that would strike Section 6 in its entirety. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Councilman Bishop.
Well, we have to, if we want the redevelopment commission to reimburse this, will we be able to bring this back up?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to strike Section 6 in Ordinance 2014-4. Call for a vote on the amendment.
Jeremy Ashcraft,
Yes.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Charlie Hastings,
Yes.
Chuck Liddell,
Yes.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
Ordinance 2014-4 has been amended on a vote of 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Now Ordinance 2014-4 in its entirety.
Teresa Popejoy,
Yes.
Chuck Liddell,
No.
Charlie Hastings,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
Ordinance 2014-4 passes on first reading on a vote of 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Are there any board member comments? Any miscellaneous business, including matters not already considered? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.